Last year, Jim Harbaugh finally did it. He got the Michigan Wolverines over the hump, and they finally won a national championship. For years, many thought that he was a fraud or that he could not get it done in Ann Arbor, but he did. He sent J.J. McCarthy off to the NFL, sent nearly a record number of players off to the NFL, got himself a ring, and got himself a head coaching job in the NFL. Now as we look forward to the 2024 college football season, Michigan is in an interesting spot. They're coming off an interesting Connor Stallion situation. They have to find a new quarterback, replace a ton of new players, and have a new head coach. I have no idea how Michigan's going to do this year, but I still think they'll be pretty solid and should be at the top of the Big Ten. In today's video, we're going to preview the 2024 Wolverines, go through the roster, talk about last year, talk about some of the major storylines, and make a game-by-game prediction for them. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and preview the 2024 Michigan Wolverines. So last year, J.J. McCarthy was obviously the quarterback, and then they had a two-headed monster at running back in both Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Corum returned because of a knee injury he suffered late in 2022, and this was a huge get. Roman Wilson became the top receiver, and Colston Loveland became one of the top tight ends in college football, and they returned so many players on defense that I can't even go through all of them. In terms of the season itself, the Wolverines ended up starting out ranked number 2 in the country, and they would beat East Carolina 30-3 in week 1. In week 2, they'd kill UNLV 35-7, and that win actually got better in time, before they would then kill Bowling Green at home and destroy Rutgers at home. The month of September would end with a road victory against Nebraska, and it wasn't even worth watching football as they blew every single team out and no one scored more than 7 points. It was super boring, but Michigan was really good. After that, they'd go on the road and play against Minnesota, and they'd win that game 52-10, and then destroy Indiana 52-7. On October 21st, they'd then go on the road and beat Michigan State 49-0, and then they would beat Purdue 41-13 at home. As I look in retrospect, Michigan played pretty much nobody the first 2/3 of the season. While Rutgers did make a bowl, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State, and Purdue all missed out on it. They played pretty much no one in the Big Ten that first half and played an awful non-conference schedule. No wonder at the time people were thinking that they were somewhat fraudulent. Luckily, they would start to put that to bed though, as they would then go on the road and beat number 10 Penn State 24-15, went on the road and beat Maryland by 7 points, and Maryland was a pretty solid team, and then faced off with number 2 Ohio State. After winning 2 straight years, many were wondering if the Wolverines could win it a third time, and that is what they did. Kyle McCord threw a late touchdown, and Michigan dominated enough to win 30-24 and go back to the Big Ten championship, and more importantly, really make the team down south mad. From there, they played number 16 Iowa in the Big Ten championship, and as usual, Iowa forgot to bring their offense, so it was a 26-0 thrashing. They get selected to play in the college football playoff, obviously, and they play number 4 Alabama in the Rose Bowl. This game was absolutely electric, and they actually almost botched it with a bad muff punt at the end, but they would end up winning 27-20 in overtime after a bad snap would then haunt Jalen Milroe. From there, they go to the national championship game, where against number 2 Michael Penix and the Washington Huskies, they'd win that game 34-13, and they were back. They ended up going 15-0 with a 9-0 mark in the Big Ten, and this was awesome. J.J. McCarthy became one of the best quarterbacks in school history, and they got themselves a ring. J.J. McCarthy would finish with 2,991 yards with 22 touchdowns. Blake Corum ran for 1,200 yards and 27 touchdowns. And then at the receiver spot, Roman Wilson caught 48 passes for 789 yards and 12 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Junior Colston led the way with 95 tackles. Jalen Harrell led the way with 6.5 sacks. Mike Sanderstill led the way with 6 pass deflections, and Sanderstill also had 6 interceptions. The Wolverines would send a ton of players to the NFL, as they sent J.J. McCarthy in the first round, Chris Jenkins and Mike Sanderstill in the second round, Junior Colston, Blake Corum, Roman Wilson, and Zach Zinter in the third round, A.J. Barner in the fourth, Trevor Keegan in the fifth, and then Michael Barrett, Ladarius Henderson, Jalen Harrell, and Cornelius Johnson in the 7th round. They put an insane amount of players into the NFL, and after the season was over, they lost Coach Harbaugh to the Chargers. They will have a lot to figure out, but luckily they have a good amount of talent coming in. Their 2024 class finished at number 19 in the country, which was headlined by offensive tackle Andrew Sprague, corner Josiah Edmond from Indiana, and then Jaden Davis, a former 5-star quarterback who fell a little bit towards the end. Their transfer portal class was ranked number 58 in the country, as they had 9 total guys. They got Wesley Walker, a safety from Louisville, Jaden Mangum, a safety from Michigan State, Ricky Johnson, a corner from UNLV, Amir Hall, a corner from Albany, and Marion Walker, a wide receiver from Ole Miss, CJ Charleston, a receiver from Youngstown, Dominic Zavada, Jayshawn Barham, a linebacker from Maryland, and Josh Priebe, an offensive lineman from Northwestern. But how is their offense going to actually look? Well, they ended up losing J.J. McCarthy, so the quarterback position right now is in flux. They have a 5-man quarterback battle between Jaden Davis, Alex Orji, Jaden Denegal, Jack Tuttle, and Davis Warren. I have been looking relentlessly at who's actually going to be the starter, and as of now, people are telling me it's between Davis Warren, Alex Orji, and Jack Tuttle. Tuttle's the oldest with the most experience, Orji's the most athletic, and Warren seems to have the best command of the offense. I literally don't know who's going to win, and no matter who I say is going to be the starter, people are going to be correcting me down in the comment section below. So honestly, we're just going to leave it up to you guys. I think they have a 3-man quarterback battle, and Sharon Moore will have to figure that one out. At the running back spot, they obviously lost Blake Corum to the NFL, but Donovan Edwards returns, and he was good enough to be on the cover of NCAA 25, so there's no worries about him. His backup will be Kalel Mullings, and then you'll have Ben Hall and true freshman Jordan Marshall. In terms of the receiver spot, they will end up losing Roman Wilson, so in my eyes, the guys who are going to step up are Samaj Morgan, Tyler Morris, Fred Moore, Amorion Walker, the transfer, Kendrick Bell, and CJ Charleston, the other transfer. Other guys such as Peyton O'Leary, Channing Goodwin, and Amorion Walker will also get a chance to play on the field, and replacing Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson will be somewhat difficult. At the tight end spot, they lost AJ Barner to the league, but they returned Colston Loveland, who is one of the best players in the country, and they also have plenty of other big names such as Marlon Klein, Zach Marshall, and Brady Priestcorn. They also lost a lot of offensive linemen, but the starters should be Miles Hinton, Josh Priebe, Greg Crippen, Giovanni El Hadid, and Andrew Gentry. On the defensive line, you're going to have Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, Mason Graham, and Derek Moore. Everybody's been talking about TJ Guy as a backup, and I expect him to get on the field plenty as well. This is one of their strengths, as Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham are two of the best interior linemen in the country. In terms of the linebacking core, the starters will be Ernest Hausman, Jayshawn Barham, and Jimmy Rolder, and then backups will include Jaden Hood, Micah Pollard, and Cole Sullivan. I'm also going to eat my words. I made a video a couple weeks ago talking about how Ernest Hausman was a little bit of a disappointment, so I will admit it, yes, he was actually pretty solid, and I should not have made that video, and he's a guy who should be the main and best linebacker this upcoming season. In terms of the secondary, at corners you'll have Will Johnson, Amir Hall, and Jaden McBurrows, and Will Johnson is the best corner and one of the top 5 players in all of college football. He's insane, and right now he'll probably be a top 10 pick in this year's draft, and is someone I'm super pumped to watch. They'll also have Jair Hill, Ricky Johnson, and Zeke Berry. In terms of the safety position, you're going to have Rod Moore, who's currently nursing an injury, Makari Page, and their transfer Wesley Walker. You also have Jaden Mangum and Quentin Johnson. Brandon Hillman and Jacob Oden are also hoping to see reps, and overall, the defense looks tremendous. I give the defense an A, but the offense right now I think could use some work. The offensive line will have a ton of new moving pieces. While they're really solid at both the tight end and running back position, we still need to wait to see who will be the top 2 wide receivers on the team, who will actually play quarterback, and how the new offensive line will mesh together. I know a lot of people are going to complain down in the comment section saying that everything is perfect, but just be real, it's not. There's a lot to figure out, there's a new head coach, and now there's some allegations that might be coming the program's way. So in my opinion, there's a lot of gray area and a lot of murkiness going on. Still though, I'm going to give Michigan a B for the offense, and they'll likely have guys step up, and they'll be really good by the end of the year. So in terms of their schedule, how do I think they're going to do? Well, they play Fresno State in week 1, and while that's better than what they did last year, it still doesn't mean this game's going to be close. Michigan probably wins that one pretty easily before one of the biggest games in years, as Texas will come to town. Texas is looking to win a national championship this year, and this is by far the game of week 2. I know it's probably going to be super unpopular and Michigan fans aren't going to want to hear it, but I think Texas comes in and wins this game. Michigan will still be figuring out who the heck their quarterback is, and Texas is also an elite level team. I'm not saying Michigan isn't elite, but there's just way too much for Michigan to figure out by week 2. And in general, I just think Texas is that good, so I think the Longhorns come in and win by a touchdown. Michigan fans won't be happy to hear that, but luckily from there, it should be pretty smooth sailing. They'll beat Arkansas State in week 3, and then in week 4 against USC, they're also going to win that game. In my USC preview, Trojan fans were questioning me on that, but I think USC also has a lot to figure out, and they're also breaking in a new quarterback in Miller Moss. Michigan will be 3-1 going into the Minnesota game, and while I think the Golden Gophers will be a bowl team this year, I don't think it'll be that close, and Michigan wins by at least 2 touchdowns. After that, they have their first trap game of the year, as they will go on the road to play against Washington. While the Huskies lost pretty much everything, Jedd Fisch has proven he's one of the top up-and-coming coaches, and with this game being on the road and a rematch of last year's national championship game, I think it could be close. Still though, I'm going to pick Michigan to win, as there's not really a good reason to pick Washington to win, and then they'll also go on the road and beat Illinois. Finally, in their last 5 games of the season, they'll really just have 2 major tests. At first, they come home and play against Michigan State, and they're under first-year head coach Jonathan Smith, and just like Jedd Fisch, he's one of the new up-and-coming coaches in college football, but there's way too much for Michigan State to figure out, and there's not that much talent on the roster, plus this game is in the Big House, so Michigan wins pretty easily. After that, they're going to play against Oregon, and this is going to be a thriller of a game in my eyes. In my Oregon preview, I predicted the Wolverines to win this one, and I think out of the 3 major swing games, they end up going 1-3, but I do pick them to beat the Ducks, as I don't necessarily trust Dylan Gabriel, and I also just think that Michigan will end up being the better team at this point. After that, they're going to go on the road to play against Indiana, and while I have been sneakily high on what Coach Sig is doing with the Hoosiers, there's no way in heck I would pick them to win this game, and Michigan wins that, and will beat Northwestern pretty easily before a huge face-off with Ohio State. No matter what I say and how I package this, Michigan fans won't be happy, but there's no way in my eyes they beat Ohio State for a 4th straight year. Not only is this game going to be in Columbus, but Ohio State spent millions of dollars on NIL, they brought back pretty much everybody, and I really think they are that good this year. I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout, but I think Ohio State is actually going to win this game and break that 3-year streak. Michigan fans probably want to kill me at this point, but that's how I think it'll go, as I think the Wolverines will end up going 10-2, with losses to both Texas and Ohio State, but a major victory over Oregon. It's not Michigan's fault they play, in my opinion, the top 2 teams in college football this year, and with a new head coach and dang near a whole new roster, there's really no reason in my eyes to pick Michigan to win either of those 2 games, but it could end up happening. They have the talent to do it, but to me there's just too many question marks right now. I still think Michigan would end up squeaking into the college football playoff with a 10-2 record, especially with that strength of schedule, but it might be close. If Michigan gets in the playoff, it would depend on the matchup to see if I would pick them, but at most I think they end up winning a game, before I think in 2025 they're going to be much better. I really think that Sherrone Moore is going to have to figure out the quarterback position, as while Michigan fans keep telling me how great this quarterback room is, it currently has a 7th-year guy, a former walk-on, and 2 project players. A lot is going to need to be figured out for them, but for now, I think Michigan goes 10-2, has a really good year, and Sherrone Moore has a ton of momentum going into 2025. We'll have to wait and see though, but what do you guys think? If you're a Michigan fan, what did I get right and wrong? And be sure to let me know what I did get right and wrong, what school I should cover next, and before you go, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.